What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm hoping to weld up a couple of cubes. Stay tuned. Here's the cube kit that I picked up off of Amazon. I actually picked up 2 of them. I've never done this before, so I wanted to make sure that if I screwed up the first one, I could at least work on a second one and hopefully make that one better. I've been practicing a lot with this thinner gauge sheet metal. This is 16 gauge and this is 22 gauge, but I have not welded anything thick as this, and this is 1/8 of an inch. Since I haven't welded anything at an 1/8 of an inch thickness, I went ahead and went up to Lowe's and got a piece of just angle iron, and it is an 1/8 of an inch thick. I'm going to use this to practice with before I get started on trying the cubes. I didn't clean any of this sheet metal up over here when I was welding on it, but this stuff I do want to actually clean up the metal. So I'm going to get the air compressor out and get my little die grinder on there and then get all of this like rust and stuff off of there so it's a clean bare piece of metal to weld to. Compressor and grinder are all hooked up, so you saw how I put everything on there, and then I've just got this little coarse bristle pad. This is the one that actually came with the grinder. I just never had a use for it until now, but I did go up to Harbor Freight and pick up some extras in case I need them. Run some air through there and see how well it works. I got half of this piece all cleaned up. You can see down here where it's all still rusty on the inside, and then over here where it's all cleaned up. And then over here on the outside, dirty, and then clean. So I only did half of it right now. These little bristle pads work great. They don't take off the metal like sandpaper and flat discs do, but it definitely, knocks that surface rust off pretty easy. Since I want to actually practice putting some pieces together, I'm going to get the angle grinder out and see if I cannot cut some pieces out of this. I got the little pieces cut out of the angle iron. Cutoff wheel was a champ. So there are some little pieces that are on the edges there that I need to clean up. So I don't really want to get a deburring tool out. So I think I'm just going to try to use my little bristle pad again and see if I can't just knock those edges off. I got all the edges cleaned up, so there's no shavings hanging on anymore. You can see they're very nice and cleaned up. There's a couple of these that are uneven. This one actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna take them over here, get them set up on my little table, and then see if I can't weld some together. I've got everything set up. I've got the welder on. Everything's ready to go. I've been actually using it on the synergic setting. I haven't been using it on manual. This thing's been working out pretty great for me, especially on that 16 gauge. Like I said, I have not done anything above that 16 gauge, so we'll see how this 1/8 inch works out. I've got my ground down here. I tried clamping one of these pieces onto the end, but I can't get my clamp on there with a way that I can still get to the corners and get this thing tacked in. So what I'm gonna do is just basically sit this thing on here on the end, especially down here where I've already rounded away. It should be a really good connection, and I should be able to just get the corners tacked on, and then from there I can clamp it onto this piece and then get my stitch ran. I've got all 4 corners tacked on, so I'm gonna try to lay some stitches down now. I'm not a professional welder. Like I said earlier, that is my welding experience over there. And I've had better luck with pulling the bead, not pushing it. I've heard with MIG welding, it's better to use a pushing method. From what I've read, it's because the gas is able to cover better. But I've had better looking welds, and it has good penetration with the pulling method. I don't want to get good with just one way of doing it. I want to do it both ways. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do my pulling method right now. If everything comes out pretty good, then I'll try to do the pushing method on the other 2 sides. Here's the first one. I don't think it's too bad. I got a little off center there in the middle, but overall it actually holds up pretty good. And then the second one over here, it started off kind of sloppy at first, and then I finished up pretty strong, I think, there towards the end. Welding is definitely something that it takes a lot of seat time. I'm gonna go ahead and finish practicing on these. So I'm gonna tack these 2 together, and then I'll tack these 2 together. And then I think this set, I'm gonna try to actually push the welds. And then my last ones, whichever one actually comes out better between this one and this one, I'll just either push or pull on the last set there. Here's my push weld. I think it actually came out much better than the pull weld. I ended up stopping halfway. I got a little spark in my shoe and it was burning. So I finished up right there, but my last little bit right there, I think looks really, really good. I like how the welds are laid over each other. Let me flip them over here and I'll let you compare the other sides. Again, I think this one came out so much better, and I was able to run this one the whole way. I think that looks like a really nice weld. I have just been doing the pull and drag method to get my beads. I've done a little bit of the circular work on the 16 gauge, but the pull and drag seems to be easier and it comes out a little bit better. Also, I felt like this one was really hot up front, so I did turn the welder down just a little bit on the voltage over there. Again, it's the synergic setting, so all you have to do is just turn the voltage down and the wire feed sets itself. I think for my last practice one, I'm gonna do one side pulling and one side pushing. Here's all 3 pieces, so pull, push, and then this side of it, I did the pull method, and then this side of it, I did the push method. And again, for some reason, I thought I did much better with pulling on the smaller sheet gauge metal, but on this 1/8 inch, I did much better every single time that I did the push method. I think for just a little added practice, I'm gonna go ahead and maybe try to weld all of these pieces together. I got all 3 pieces welded together. So on this side over here, I did the push method. And then on this side over here, I actually did the pull method, and it actually came out great. They both look really, really good. However, on the other side over here, I used the push method. Like I said, this one came out okay. This one over here, it left a really, really, really large gap, and I just didn't realize it when I had tacked these 2 together on top. So what I tried to do is just combine them, And from what I've read and all the other YouTube videos I watched, basically what they said to do with welding is you want to just basically draw your puddle where you want it to go. So what I did is just did a little bit over here, did a little bit over here, did a little bit over here, and eventually that puddle just kind of connected. I did have to stop halfway. It got really hot and it burned through, and then I just finished it up once it cooled down. It's definitely not the best looking weld, but it will hold. Last little bit of practice, I'm gonna go ahead and try to weld up these last 4 seams here. Here's the last practice welds. I did the pull method on both of them. This one came out perfect. This one came out great. I was really actually proud of myself on this one because there was a large gap here. So what I did is just like I did, you know, my normal push and pull movement. And then once I got to the gap, I started doing these circles. And you know, like I was saying earlier, you just kind of like chase your puddle. Basically the end of the wire is creating the puddle. And so wherever the puddle is at, you don't want to stay there. You move your wire to where you want the puddle to be. And then once it chases it there, you know, you just keep moving it. And you know, it does it pretty fast. So if you do the circles, it definitely helps out. There was a couple of times where I kind of just had to bounce back and forth, but yeah, it filled it in perfectly and I didn't have to stop. And then if I flip it over here, you can see the other side. I did the pull method on this one, and then I did the push method on this side. I'm pretty happy with how the practice piece came out. All the welds actually finally came out pretty good there towards the end. This big giant one didn't, but that was my own fault. I just didn't cut the pieces straight. But where there were, you know, decent gaps, all of my beads came out pretty decent. So I think I'm ready. I'm gonna go ahead and get all of the pieces set up over there and try to get these cubes welded up. Just like the angle iron, these pieces have a bunch of surface rust on here. So I'm gonna get the die grinder and some of those bristle pads back out and knock all this down. I knocked all of the edges down with the sanding disc, and then I got all of the rust off with the little bristle pads. Everything's good to go. I'm just gonna kind of set 2 pieces up with the magnets, try to get them as straight as possible, and then get the corners tacked in. Here's how I've got it set up. It's pretty simple. The magnets are on the inside. It's creating the 90-degree angle, and then I try to leave just a little bit of a gap in between both pieces, so that way the bead kind of lays inside and it doesn't bubble up on top. I'm gonna get both corners tacked in, and then I will try to lay the weld. Here's the first weld on the cube. It turned out okay. I did the push method and it's a solid weld. The only thing is it's built up really high. I don't know if you can tell. And I just kept, the wire kept, there was nothing wrong with the wire feed speed. I just kept pulling back. I just wasn't letting it feed into the puddle. And so on this next weld, I'm definitely gonna just kind of keep my tip onto the metal and let that wire, you know, feed into that puddle. Here's the second half. It came out much better. The beads are stacked over a little bit better. They're spaced out a lot more, whereas over here you can see that I've got it stacked up and it's built up really, really high. I tried keeping my puddle and keeping my the end of the wire into the puddle the whole time instead of lifting off, and it kept it down, and I think that's what helped me to keep these beads a little bit more spaced out. I'm gonna tack these 2 pieces together and get them welded up. Sorry, I didn't check my camera when I moved it to the second weld, so you didn't get to actually see me do that one. Both of these came out okay. I'm not super happy about either of them, but they'll hold up. This one too. In the center there, it actually looks really, really nice, but then on the edges, I don't know why, it just kept screwing up. But either way, it's holding up good, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the last 2 pieces tacked on and then get them welded up. I just finished up this side and these welds came out so freaking good. So this side came out great, this side came out great, this side came out great. The only side that I didn't actually do very good on is this side, and I tried touching it up on the edge over there, and it was just a spot weld. I don't know why I did that. It screwed it up though. But this side, I tried pushing on all 3 of these sides. I did a pulling method, and it was much easier for some reason this time, and it just came out so much better. So I'm gonna flip it over and get the last piece all welded up. I finished up welding the last side, so right here I did the push method, and you can kind of see it started out really good and then it got kind of crappy there towards the end. But I did the pull method on this side, came out great. Pull method on this side, it came out great. And then I did the pull method on this side also, and the beads actually came out great, but I did get a little off center here and mess that up, but no big deal. I'm gonna try to do a little bit better job on the next cube, on the second cube. I'm probably gonna do pulls on every single side just to try to make all of the beads look great, and then obviously try to keep from doing this. But you know, like I said, I'm a beginner. For the most part, this turned out pretty good for my first little welding project, a nice little cube. But I'm really glad that I've got my beads down. I'm glad that I figured out kind of a way that works really well for me to give me a nice look. I'm gonna get all the pieces out for the second cube and then get the edges cleaned up with a die grinder like I did for the first cube, and then get this thing welded together, and hopefully it turns out even better than the first one. I finished welding up the second cube. It definitely did not come out better than the first one. It probably came out just as good. Some of the welds look really nice. So like right there, those are stacked very nice. And actually along all of these. So these are the first welds that I actually laid down. And then when I laid the plates, so this is one of the ones that I laid on top, and this is the other one that I just laid on top. And there were just really big gaps, and I was having a really hard time filling these gaps in. And then I just kind of got frustrated with it and then filled in the gap with some little spot welds. But either way, it came out with a square. I really enjoyed it. It definitely gave me a lot of practice. Overall though, from where I started with this over here and then ending up with this one, kind of figuring out how I like to do it, and then, you know, being able to do these right here on this one, I mean, this turned out really nice. So I definitely think that with practicing with all of these have made my welding skills progress for the better. It is late, it's already dark outside, so I'm gonna call it quits for tonight and go hang out with the family. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will catch you next time.